welcome to our beautiful YouTube channel and welcome to our first exciting historical discussion of the morning, the Royal Oak. Royal Oak, what the heck is that? You probably just asked yourself out loud if you live anywhere outside of England. So, at the super famous Battle of Worcester in 1651, King Charles of England lost big time and was on the run from Cromwell's troop, hiding in houses of loyal subjects, disguising himself as a woman. Importantly for a discussion, climbing an oak tree at Boscobel House. It would take the king 9 years before he got his crown back, but instead of being a symbol of defeat, the royal oak Charles had climbed instead became a symbol of defiance and loyalty to the kingdom. Legend quickly transformed the simple act of a royal figure climbing a tree into a story to be celebrated as a legend. Poet John Wade wrote a poem celebrating the tree in 1660. Same year, Charles got his crown back. Coincidence. But already, an intellectual battle over what happened had begun. Thomas Blunt, a guy who published a crazy number of books on old things and who was now a Roman Catholic, wrote and published semi-final version which perpetuated various myths, while Clarendon, who was an earl and his grandkids were queen. The other type. Clarendon, History of the Rebellion, gave a more realistic account, and then, of course, the king himself apparently told the story regularly and dictated the version to Samuel Pepys, though this was not published until the 19th century. Blunt, a guy who published a crazy number of books on old things and who was now a renowned Roman Catholic, wrote and published a semi-final version which perpetuated various myths, while Clarendon, who was an earl and his grandkids were queen. No, the other type. Clarendon, History of the Rebellion, gave a more realistic account, and then, of course, the king himself apparently told the story regularly and dictated the version to Samuel Pepys, though this was not published until the 19th century. Around the early 19th century, historians started to dispute the fact about the king's time in the tree. Did he even climb the tree, or did you just make that up, the whole thing to gain support? John Hugh codified what became known as the Boscobel Tract in 1830, mostly to correct Walter Scott myth, known as Boscobel Tract in 1830, was way too romantic and filled with errors. Hugh tried to point to only the most reliable source to get at what truth there might be in it. In 1897, James Veal updated the sources even more with photographs and maps in order to illustrate the adventurous and romantic history. Nowadays, the myth is just as real as anything else. The tree that stands in the original spot is actually the third tree to do so. The original was uprooted by Sarah, Duchess of Marlborough in 1705. The descendants of the oak are also to be found at Hyde Park, Chelsea Botanic Garden, Dunnington Churchyard in Shropshire, near Boscobel, and Dropmore near Maiden House. Super popular with stupid souvenir hunters, even with a fence and then a wall protecting it, and it died around 1702. The second tree was damaged by storms that was replaced in 2001. While people disagree about what exactly is fact and what is fiction, the memory of the Evan became a big part of English culture. Celebrations around the country relating to the Oak Apple Day recur annually, and the Chelsea pensioners celebrate Charles' victory by wearing sprigs of oak in their hats. To quote Jerome de Groot, a famous historian, the event has become a complex part of English memorial culture, a historiographic debate, heritage, a site of tourism and memory, something to be owned. Though debate still rages around whether or not the king ever really climbed the tree, it will always make for a pleasant image.